Good afternoon. As we have people trickling in, this is just the 2-minute warning. We'll get started in 2 minutes. All right. Well, welcome everyone to this second webinar in the series, Strengthening the Continuum System Design Practice and Partnerships for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing. My name is Danica Martin. For those of you who may not know me, I'm a leadership consultant with CAS, and this webinar series is made available to you as part of CAS's conditional grant work with Alberta Education. So today we're going to be looking at the topic of frameworks into practice, building teams, pathways, and partnerships for student mental health and well-being. And we have the teams from Edmonton Catholic Schools and Lakeland Catholic here today to share their stories of practice with you. And so I'll just take a few moments to get us started. On the screen, you will see CAS's official land acknowledgement. As I always do, I would like to invite you each to take a moment to acknowledge the land where you find yourselves living, working, and playing today and other days. And from my perspective, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that I work and live on Treaty 7 territory. Here west of Bowden is where I live. Which is the traditional lands of First Nations and Métis people, and I honor and acknowledge this land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude. So again, thank you for being here today. I know how busy your schedules can be, and we all appreciate you spending an hour and a half with us learning and thinking about this important topic of student mental health and well-being. The bulk of our time together will be engaging with the stories of practice from our two school authorities that I already mentioned. We will embed reflection and discussion as it fits, depending on the timing throughout the webinar. We'll definitely have some time for questions for the presenters after each of the presentations. And again, depending on timing, we may or may not have time for some breakout conversations as well. We're going to be flexible and responsive today. So certainly, you are here to learn and to grow your practice as system education leaders. And as a result of participating in this webinar series, which I see is the wrong title on this slide, so my apologies for that. That was the last webinar series. You will be eligible for 1.5 continuing education program credits for attending this series. This, again, is webinar number 2 in a series of 3. We had a webinar last week with 2 stories of practice about sort of that universal approach to strengthening system roles to support student mental health and well-being. And next week on March 11th, we have two school authorities who will be sharing their work in embedding mental health and well-being throughout their whole system and really making it part of their school authorities' culture. So as a result of participating in all three webinars, these are the outcomes that we certainly anticipate that you will achieve. I won't read through them because I know you can all have a look at that. And again, the slide deck will be shared with you after this webinar, along with the recording once that has been edited. Particularly focused on today's session, we're looking at hearing stories of practice that will help you to identify practical strategies for operationalizing mental health and well-being frameworks within your school authorities, thinking about partnerships and different agencies you might be able to reach out to support the work that you're doing. You're going to have an opportunity to think about system-wide structures and how you can increase coherence and reduce fragmentation. And then, as always, we hope that you will be able to apply insights from these stories of practice to your own roles and your own school authorities. A lot of work has been done in this area, as you're all very familiar with, I'm sure. Particularly recently, we had the Aggression and Complexity in Schools Action Team, and they produced a final report just before Christmas. If you've had a chance to look at that, you'll know that mental health and the well-being of students and their mental health needs and complexities is woven throughout that report as an increasing area of need that contributes to classroom complexity and contributes to system complexity throughout the province. The two other resources are several years old now, but still valid, in my opinion, as those proactive sort of frameworks to think about how you can, as a school authority team, work together to support mental health in our schools. And Alberta Education produced, I think in 2021, a continuum of supports and services document particularly focused on student mental health. And so those are there for your perusal. And I did also want to highlight that at the upcoming annual conference, there is a session focused on this topic as well. There's a few sessions, related to this topic, but of particular interest to today's topic regarding mental health frameworks, we will have Shanna Fairbank from Alberta Education and Christina McKinnon from Elk Island Catholic, who will be facilitating a session where participants will have the opportunity to provide input on the draft framework for mental health implementation that Alberta Education is currently working on. This framework comes out of the research that's been completed or is in progress from the Mental Health in Schools pilot projects. And I think the vision is to have that framework completed and ready for release in the fall of 2026. So if you are at the CAS conference, this session might be of interest to you. And on that note, I will turn the virtual microphone, over to the team from Edmonton Catholic Schools. And I know they're planning to introduce themselves, so I'll let them take it from here. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Antonella, and I am the Director of Inclusive Education here with Edmonton Catholic Schools. And with me, I have my team, Shamala Manalal, who is the Manager of Mental Health and Occupational Therapy within Edmonton Catholic Schools, and Justin Duvall, who is the Assistant Manager of Mental Health and OTs as well. And Justin and Shamla are going to share our journey in developing the integrated health and well-being framework, how this work began, and what we have learned along the way, and the vision that continues to guide us forward. Their presentation is going to highlight the importance of collaboration, shared responsibility, and a whole person approach to well-being, and how this framework supports meaningful, sustainable change within and across our system. I am grateful for their leadership and partnership in this work with HR, and I look forward into the insights that they are going to share with us today. Shamala and Justin.
Thanks, Antonella. Good afternoon, everyone. As Antonella said, we are the managers of our occupational therapy and mental health team. Both Justin and I are occupational therapists by trade, and we feel very privileged to have been involved in the development of our integrated health and wellbeing framework. And we are also very grateful that we are able to present to you this afternoon. Today, we begin with a simple but powerful understanding. Well-being in schools is not divided between students and staff. Rather, it is shared, relational, and deeply interconnected. Over the past several decades, research has transformed how we understand learning, behavior, and mental health in educational environments. The landmark Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, commonly known as the ACE study, demonstrated that early adversity does not stay outside the classroom door. Experiences of stress, trauma, and instability shape the brain and brain development, emotional regulation, physical health, and ultimately a child's capacity to learn and connect. Building on this understanding, physicians and researchers such as Gabor Mate, Daniel Siegel, and Bruce Perry have helped us recognize that behavior is often an expression of unmet needs rather than defiance, asking us to ask, what is wrong, not what is wrong with this child, but rather what has happened and what do we need now? Connection is the first step, and it must be initiated by the adult. The adult is the co-regulator, and it is important for us to have that person who is present in the moment, alert to what is happening for a child who is experiencing challenges. And in the classroom, that is often the teacher. Trauma is not simply remembered, it is held in the body and expressed through relationships, regulation, safety, and even physical illnesses. Healing, therefore, does not occur through information alone, but through environments that foster connection, predictability, and belonging. The teacher is the key adult in the classroom. Psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk's work reminds us that if this is true for students, it is equally true for the adults who support them. After all, our children grow up to be the adults who take over and teach in the classrooms. This is from his book, The Body Keeps the Score. Educators and school staff are working within increasingly complex classrooms while also navigating their own stress, emotional labor, and responsibilities beyond school walls. Research consistently shows us that student well-being cannot be sustainably supported without attending to staff well-being. Regulation is contagious. Calm supports calm. Connection builds connection. The ECSD Integrated Health and Wellbeing Framework emerges from this understanding that thriving school communities are created when systems intentionally support both those who learn and those who care for learners. It took a full year to create the draft framework, which was accepted by the Board of Trustees on January 29, 2025, as part of the Growing in Mind, Body and Spirit report. The Board of Trustees have a keen interest in seeing the framework shared, used, and understood by all, and they were also happy to hear that this work will continue over the next 3 years and possibly beyond. The Integrated Health and Wellbeing Framework outlines a commitment to how Edmonton Catholic schools will support staff and student well-being. This framework also includes how schools can influence the health and well-being of the whole community by following, for example, the Action Plan for Comprehensive School Health, among other approaches. Areas covered in the framework include support for students and staff, considering culture, faith, race, ethnicity, Indigenous-specific practices, different dimensions or the 8 dimensions of well-being, comprehensive school health approach to address the unique needs of individual schools through partnerships with administrators, wellness champions, student leaders, as well as community partners, and resources that are readily available through ECSD's internal SharePoint site. We try to answer some of the questions that were posed to Antonella. And so today we hope to leave you with strategies, some of our strategies for operationalizing mental health and wellbeing frameworks through clear service pathways, defined team roles, and consistent approaches across schools. How ECSD examines partnership models to improve access to services and strengthen collaboration with health and community agencies. How we analyze system-wide structures to reduce fragmentation of supports and strengthen early and short-term intervention. and also how we strengthen coherence across division, departments, schools, and classroom teams. From the shared commitment from leadership, learning services, and human resources, a committee was created to form a new vision of well-being for every student, staff member, and community member in our school division. To ensure it was comprehensive and integrated, the committee included the Superintendents of Learning Service and Human Resources, our occupational therapy and mental health managers, Indigenous Learning Services, occupational health and safety, primary care Alberta, and religious education services. The CAS workplace wellness conditions help set the foundation for our work to ensure strategic priorities and direction matched the latest evidence. A critical step in this process was identifying a group of people with systems knowledge who are committed to meeting consistently and fulfilling the actions as identified by leadership. I'll now hand over to Justin to tell you a little bit more about our work across the division.
So this visual shows how the integrated health and well-being framework comes to life in practice here in our school division. And it starts where the work always begins, in our schools. So when a concern arises, administrators have the ability to seek support through learning services for students or human resources for staff. One key feature you'll notice is that every school identifies a wellness champion each year as well, and they act as the glue between staff and student well-being. So these individuals are connected directly with learning services where they receive professional learning, ongoing support, and they help share some of those Tier 1 well-being practices. They model social emotional learning, they support school-wide cultures of care and connection within their school site. Learning services, shown in blue, plays a central role in that system navigation and capacity building. So this team includes ourselves as the occupational therapy and mental health managers. It also includes inclusive consultants and curriculum consultants. And together we translate the framework into actionable practices across classrooms, in staff spaces, and with families. Learning services also support schools with navigating internal and external systems of care. So while schools can reach out to internal partners, we have team members as well who are very knowledgeable of roles that we can pull on us in addition within the school division to support with particular issues. So for example, multidisciplinary team managers and consultants may help identify students who may benefit from additional supports, and they'll facilitate access to services such as occupational therapy, mental health specialists, family school liaison workers, or community referrals when we need. And when we're looking at that additional wraparound support, we tap our internal partners, shown in pink, when we can. It might include school chaplains, Indigenous Learning Services, our student services team members, or school operations services. With our external partners, shown in orange, they allow us to extend our system further, and they may include Recovery Alberta, the CASA classrooms, Edmonton Police Service, and domestic violence, research partners. These relationships help our schools access specialized services while maintaining continuity and shared responsibility. Our human resources partners work alongside learning services to support staff well-being, and that may include workplace accommodations, access to employee and family assistance program supports, and domestic violence supports. So while schools may access HR directly, this partnership ensures that we have consistent evidence-informed messaging and aligned practices across our division. Finally, administrators in learning services are working with multiple data sources, such as our division student mental health surveys, our assurance surveys, school profiles, as well as student mental health referral data across the entire division to identify what our big priorities are, and it helps to guide decision-making. So to illustrate how this plays out in practice, learning services may support effective system navigation through a few partnerships that we'll highlight here. And this is operating at a whole school Tier 1 level to start with. So we're focused on prevention, connection, and shared responsibility for student well-being. So some of our external school partners include Edmonton Police Service, and this would be our school resource officers, and they would be in schools, hired by schools based on identified community needs. So in these school contexts, our SROs work collaboratively with their school teams, and particularly in complex situations. And it extends beyond safety. It's includes relationship building, it includes reducing stigma, it includes applying a trauma-informed approach when we're supporting our students and families. Our schools also partner closely with Primary Care Alberta staff, including school health nurses, the Healthy Schools teams, and nutrition programming. And again, these partnerships are supporting a population-level health promotion and helping schools address wellness needs early and proactively. From a research perspective, one of our partners this year has been the Integrated School Support Program, and this was developed in partnership with the Calgary Police Youth Foundation. This work supports holistic, community-based approaches to student well-being. Then when we look to our internal partners, our wellness champions, as I spoke on before, are in every school, and they play a central role to connecting learning services with our school teams. So wellness champions support that dissemination of Tier 1 practices. They're helping lead the school-wide initiatives alongside administration, and they're responding to emerging well-being needs within their school communities. Within Indigenous learning services, they partner with schools to support Indigenous students' personal, emotional, spiritual, mental, physical, and academic success. And those supports could be individual. They may also be offered through culturally grounded programming, such as our Braided Journeys program. Learning Services and Human Resources also collaborate to provide professional learning for school leaders, including how to apply the comprehensive school health framework so that principals can develop meaningful school-based well-being plans. So moving now to when students require more of a targeted or specialized mental health support, we rely both on our internal and strong external partnerships to ensure that continuity of care across settings. So at this level, the goal of the school team is really to maintain that consistent support across environments, while ensuring that specialized needs are addressed appropriately. And when we've fully utilized our internal supports, they've been fully exhausted, our external partners help provide that access to secondary and tertiary care. So as an example, ECSD maintains an ongoing partnership with CASA, and our learning services inclusive consultants support those referrals to CASA classrooms to ensure their appropriateness for students that require intensive mental health intervention. Through our relationship with the Glenrose Hospital campus, the managers of occupational therapy and mental health coordinate that communication between the hospitals and schools, supporting some smooth transitions for students returning to the school following treatment. And our partnership with Recovery Alberta is particularly unique. Edmonton Catholic Schools employs its own mental health specialists while also contracting Recovery Alberta for additional therapists. And although these professionals perform similar roles within the school setting, the established relationships with Recovery Alberta managers and the ECSD occupational therapy and mental health managers allow for more seamless system navigation, especially for highly complex cases. Looking at our internal partners, School Operations Services supports those students that are involved in complex situations such as trauma, violence, gang involvement, and referrals typically occur after school-based multidisciplinary supports have been fully explored. And then finally, alternative education provides flexible learning options for students whose life circumstances prevent regular school attendance. So in addition to educational programming, these programs are supported by a mental health specialist and a family school liaison worker. And across all of these targeted interventions, of course, we have the multidisciplinary team playing a critical role. And while many disciplines contribute, our mental health specialists and family school liaison workers are often very key to supporting individual students and coordinating care across the school and family and community contexts. Staff well-being is a shared responsibility across the system, and Human Resource Services works closely with Learning Services to support psychologically healthy workspace and workplaces throughout the school division. The overarching goal from Human Resources is to embed well-being into everyday systems. So how our school division hires, how we lead, how we support, and how we retain our staff. And we don't treat wellness as a standalone initiative. Human Resources uses multiple data sources to identify our system pressures and where we should focus. So this includes employee engagement indicators, absenteeism trends, incidents reporting, and our employee and family assistance program usage patterns. Staff survey data identified a clear need for us this year to increase awareness and understanding of Employee and Family Assistance Program, or EFAP, supports. And historically, our registration and utilization across the school division have been lower than what would be expected for a division our size. So this year, there have been targeted efforts to focus on reducing that barrier and improving access. So with a particular emphasis on what preventative supports the program offers, such as coaching, financial consulting, counseling rather, and early intervention services. In terms of capacity building, our human resources team has coordinated training in psychological health and safety, respectful workplaces, mental health awareness for our staff and leaders. And a key focus this year has been the Working Mind, which is a workplace mental health training program that's offered to individuals, teams, and school communities across our division. Externally, Human Resources also partners with benefit providers such as ASEBP, Alberta Blue Cross, and Green Shield, as well as organizations like the Mental Health Commission of Canada and AHS. So together, these internal and external partnerships help us ensure that staff feel supported, resourced, and equipped to sustain their own well-being while they're supporting students in their classrooms and school communities. So as we wrap up, we'll leave you with some considerations that are takeaways for ourselves that we've learned along the way. And first, it's exciting to hear about the third installment in this webinar series, because this is how we view it. It's helpful to reframe systems change as culture change, not an initiative. And this is not a program with an endpoint. It is a shift in how we do things in school culture, how our systems are speaking and thinking and responding to students and staff. So from a leadership mindset, we're building conditions. We're not delivering a product. And so we expect this to take years of evolution. This is not an immediate transformation. And as leaders, we also know that we need to support others in holding a steady course. So within the Whole Learners, Whole Systems framework by authors Fine, Rincon, Gallardo, and Fullen, they bring up the concept of steady work, and it sits alongside shared vision, symmetry, and systemness to support learning and belonging and well-being across entire districts. So steady work is a focus on the long-term improvement over reactive short-term reforms. And it takes time and trust and coherence over years with this disciplined persistence and attention. And for us, this is a reminder to resist those quick fixes and changes that promise rapid relief, but actually fragment our efforts long-term. With that said, with number 3, we have to acknowledge that revision is important, and so frameworks have to adapt as our learning deepens and the system realities emerge. So we have to when we look at that refinement, frequent refinement signals that we are showing responsiveness to our staff experience and the student needs as well. As we work towards sustainable change, it usually spreads through trusted peers, not directives alone. So we encourage you to identify who are your early identifiers, or excuse me, who are your early adopters? Who should they may consist of principals, consultants, teachers, support staff, or students, really anyone who will model the work authentically. So when you identify these allies, you're going to want to elevate their practice, create opportunities for that peer-to-peer influence to happen. And the goal is just to grow that momentum through relationships rather than hierarchy. Finally, there will be variation in the system as change takes hold. And for readiness, while readiness for change varies across our different schools, departments, individuals, certain elements do require consistency. So for example, we want people to use trauma-informed language. We want to engage in collaborative problem solving. We want to promote psychological safety as non-negotiables as we learn and grow together. But we do know that schools, departments, and individuals will move at different speeds on those. And some will be early leaders, some will take more time. So normalizing this variation in the pace of change is important while maintaining a shared direction. With that,
yeah, thank you. And we'll hand over back to Antonella or Danica.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for that story of practice. If Antonella has anything that she'd like to say to wrap it up.
I was just saying that I really strongly believe that Shamala and Justin and our HR team have really shared what our story has been and to where we are now. And we feel like we are really serving our students when it comes to mental health and as well as our staff. And just one of the things that, I really want to share with you, this all started with if our staff isn't well, then how can they be teaching our students who may need some additional supports? And so we've done a lot of work with HR has done a lot of work and professional development sessions with our entire staff. That includes, our teachers, our support staff, just everybody, our principals, our leaders in our buildings, our managers. And then we, of course, have moved on to student mental health. And just one of the other things that I really wanted to share is that, it is our, we call it our inclusive profile time right now. And one of the things that we're really looking into is providing even more additional supports for mental health, especially in our junior high and high schools. And so right now we have 10 very large high schools, like at least over 1,500 students in each of them. And 9 out of the 10 high schools all have mental health supports of some sort. And we're looking now into junior high and elementary as well. So it's just something I just wanted to share is it is one of our focus and one of our division goals that we're really looking at.
Okay, thank you. We will have a little bit of time for a short breakout discussion here, but before that happens, I'll open it up to the group to see if there are any questions for the Edmonton Catholic team. Welcome back. I hope you had a chance to have a little bit of a conversation. I know there's never enough time for those breakout conversations, and I always hate to cut them off, but we do want to give time to our next story of practice as well. So at this time, I'm happy to turn it over to Carol Rainey, who will take us through her story of practice from Lakeland Catholic Schools.
Thank you, Danica. So I'm Carol, and I'm the Director of Inclusive Education and Student Wellness for Lakeland Catholic Schools. So Lakeland Catholic is located in northeastern Alberta, and we have 8 schools, 3 in Bonnyville, 3 in Cold Lake, 1 in Lac La Biche, and 1 in the village of Wasetna. We have approximately 2,800 students, so we're very small compared to Edmonton Catholic. On the left here, you'll see a picture of Bonnyville, in terms of there's a little lake there, and on the right is Cold Lake, part of it anyway, and that's the marina. Bottom left is a sign going into Wasetna, and on the right is an aerial view of part of the town of Lac La Biche. Excuse me, Lac La Biche. So our project for the mental health project was called Mental Health Wellness in Schools, Education and Community Partners Together. Our goal was to build community collaboration so children, youth, and families in the Lakeland have ongoing access to universal, targeted, and individualized mental health supports that promote wellness. We partnered with the Cold Lake, Bonnyville, and Lac-La-Biche County FCSS, Family Community Support Services, the Lakeland Family Resource Network, which is part of the Bonnyville FCSS and supports parents, and the Dragonfly Center in Bonnyville. The Dragonfly Center is it's a center for individuals that have been affected by sexual violence, and they provide education as well as therapy. Each of our schools has a family outreach worker with varying degrees of FTE and also a classroom support teacher. And so the family outreach worker is responsible for brief interventive counseling type services, and the classroom support teacher is responsible for inclusive education programming in the schools. Last year, we also had a 1.0 Indigenous outreach worker, and the year previous as well. So our division priorities were to provide universal mental health programming, education, and awareness, to reduce stigma, and then also provide targeted and individualized therapy for students who have experienced trauma. We wanted to provide education and intervention for our project and for our students. To do this, our approach was to, excuse me, I might sneeze, sorry. We hired mental health navigators. So we had one for the town of Bonnyville, 1.0, one for the town of City of Cold Lake, and a 0.5 serving Lac-La-Biche and Macetna. Our schools in Lac-La-Biche and Macetna are very small, and so we had a 0.5 FTE for that. The Dragonfly Center in Bonnyville provided child and youth counselors for each community, for each school, and as well, they also provided mental health education sessions within the schools. The FCSS groups in Cold Lake, Bonnyville, and Lac-La-Biche County hired a wellness facilitator 1.0 that was funded through the grant as well. So we had mental health navigators in place, wellness facilitators to provide education sessions, as well as the Dragonfly Center, child and youth counselors, and education providers. So at the beginning of the project, we looked at, keep trying to use my arrow to advance the slides, and I have to actually not do that. Anyway, we looked at some data, and just to give you an idea, this graph represents some of our survey results in terms of personal counseling services, safe and caring school environment, supports for mental health, student support services, and safe and caring atmosphere in the schools. And 14% of our grade 7 through 12 students were dissatisfied with personal counseling services available at their school. 11% of teachers and 18% of students in grades 4 to 12 indicated dissatisfaction with the safe and caring environment in their school. 23% of teachers were dissatisfied with the student support services provided by agencies or specialists. And 68% of our grade 7 through 12 students felt that there is a caring atmosphere in their school. So with that and with other data, we developed our plan of having our education and prevention education as well as intervention. So in talking about our key roles and relationships, which is very important for the project, we wanted to increase student access to prevention and wellness programming. So our FCSS wellness facilitators delivered developmentally appropriate theme-based sessions to students at all grade levels across all communities, ensuring equitable access to social emotional learning focused on things such as healthy relationships, emotional regulation, resilience, and growth mindset. We wanted to try and target early intervention for students that required additional support. So our facilitators provided lunchtime small group interventions and also collaborated on school-wide mental health days, increasing early identification of needs and normalizing help-seeking behaviors among students. The small group lunchtime sessions in particular were extremely popular and quite motivating for students. We also saw that through the roles and relationships that we had, we wanted to improve student knowledge and personal wellness skills. So the Dragonfly Center educators delivered evidence-informed programming on various topics such as consent, digital safety, personal boundaries, healthy relationships, and dating violence, among other things, which we saw strengthen students' ability to recognize unsafe situations and identify trusted adults and supports. Consent for kids as young as kindergarten. The sessions, talked about I can say no to anything. If somebody wants me to do anything, go over there with me, I can say no. So it was teaching them how to use their voices. We also saw we wanted to strengthen service coordination and family support. So our mental health navigators coordinated program delivery. They facilitated the referrals to external agencies, which there were many, and supported families through connections to the Lakeland Family Resource Network, improving access to community-based services and timely individualized supports. Our navigators were critical to our service delivery. They worked with the wellness facilitators to try and navigate their way through all the scheduling of the different sessions, the Dragonfly Center, with all the different agencies that were coming in, and they collaborated together as well. So positive outcomes through exceptional collaboration, key collaboration is vital between school administration, teachers, support staff, parents, and community agencies. Our mental health in schools project was highly successful in our view. So what we saw was a positive school culture through a shared vision. These stakeholders, work closely to prioritize mental health education and intervention into the heart of each school's culture. Each school has cultivated a positive, supportive, and inclusive environment where students feel safe, understood, and empowered. Staff capacity improved. Staff reported increased confidence in engaging students in conversations around mental health and wellness. What we heard at the start of the project was staff really didn't know how to, not everybody, but a lot of our staff were not comfortable talking with students about certain aspects of their mental health, and they weren't sure what to do in the event of a disclosure or something along those lines. But we also implemented some mindfulness programming for staff, and they were very positively impacted by that, which helped their own personal mental health. We tried to tailor resources for their classroom needs and provided targeted programming to meet the specific needs of their students. Oh, excuse me. We wanted to, again, focus on education and prevention, as well as intervention. So student well-being, students demonstrated improved understanding of emotional regulation, respectful communication, and boundary setting. They were positively impacted through universal, targeted, and individualized support with the implementation of in-class presentations, lunchtime groups, and individualized counseling services. The Dragonfly child and youth counselors were able to do therapy, and so whereas our family outreach workers provide more of that, daily sort of touch in and touch base, and but our Dragonfly counselors were able to do cognitive behavior therapy or other therapeutic methods with our students. Parent support. Parents were positively impacted by the support provided by our mental health navigators. Navigators made strong effort to involve parents as much as they could. Sometimes with students that have significant mental health struggles, it can sometimes be difficult to get parents on board, but we had some of our navigators went to medical appointments with families, provided all kinds of resources, including community and external resources and external referrals as well. And we did try to have parent sessions. Unfortunately, those were not as popular as we would hoped, but our administrators' capacity was increased. Our school administrators and our family outreach workers were positively impacted by the family support and additional counseling services provided through the project, which lessened their individual workloads to a certain degree, and it thereby increasing the support they can provide to other students within their roles. Our family outreach workers in the past would do class presentations, they would do small group work, but up until the project started, there was quite a few years where they were more dealing with individual students all day long with different levels of concern. So this provided them the opportunity to do different things. One of the ways that we measured our success was also through qualitative data. So after every session, there were surveys that were done. And so some of the things that were said, students said, being able to detect an abusive relationship so I don't end up in one again. We had these two boys in grade 12. Our navigator and wellness facilitator they had a booth and they were giving the kids hot chocolate and whatnot and greeting kids. And they could overhear these two boys talking about one of the friends that has had issues with substance use. And so they kind of they didn't know their names, but they looked over at them and they said, "Hey, aren't you the mental health ladies?" Because they had seen them in the school a lot and they've been in some sessions. And that may not sound huge, but it was a massive win for us to have grade 12 students. And then, of course, not only did they, "Hey, aren't you the ladies?" They also wanted to get help for their friend. So that was cool. Grade 6 student, hot chocolate healed my soul. And I love the activities. If only a cup of hot chocolate could heal everybody's soul, I think the world would be a much better place. One of the things that we focused on was something called cognitive distortions and trying to teach the students that we don't need to catastrophize everything and sometimes our minds distort reality. And a student said, "This was good for me as I always jump to conclusions, excuse me, thanks a lot. To take a minute and ask myself if that thought is really true or realistic." Another student said, "I wish I had this program sooner. I knew all of this stuff since I had to learn the hard way." And a parent said, "This gave me a starting point for conversations we've never had as a family. It made talking about this feel more normal." Sometimes the qualitative provides you more living proof than any stat can show you. But so looking at this next slide, you can see this is from survey results again. Excuse me. Perceptions of counseling, wellness, and mental health supports. You can see the stats in terms of the students, parents, and teachers' responses. The stats we think were high. We were quite pleased with some of these numbers. Students shared that having someone on site helped them navigate anxiety, peer conflict, and academic pressures more effectively. Teachers and student assistants reported improved student regulation and engagement in the classroom. Principals and administrators identified a shift in school culture, highlighting greater openness in discussing mental health topics and stronger collaboration among staff in addressing student needs. So what did we learn from the project? We learned many, many things. So I'm flipping pages, excuse me. Very important to have clearly defined goals. So, and establish relationships. The first year of the project, it took a while for us to gain our stride because we were working because we're small communities, a lot of us knew some of the people that were coming into the schools, but it does take time to implement and build relationships with community partners, and also to develop the mental health navigator role. Something else that was important was having strong mental health navigators. They were vital to the success of this project. So the clearly defined roles, established relationships, but staffing is very important. We started off with a navigator in one of our communities, and it just didn't work, and we had to replace her, and everything changed as a result. So having the right, I mean, a lot of people are mental health specialists, but not everybody can actually be uh, as collaborative as necessary. Um, Connection, connection, connection. That is what our students want. And we know that sometimes all it takes is one person in a child's life to make a significant difference, because strong relationships and trusted adults are foundational to mental health success. So this was a critical takeaway from the project, the role of connection and relationship building in promoting mental wellness. Students across all grade levels consistently identified the presence of trusted adults, whether that be mental health staff, teachers, support staff, as the most impactful element of their experience in school. We also noticed the importance of having embedded prevention education. Uh, we had a lot of sessions, especially in the first year, and I mean, mental health is something that is talked about a lot in the media and all that. But a lot of our students, we found in one of our surveys, they couldn't really, at any age, identify their feelings, and they couldn't articulate what feeling they were having and why they were having that feeling. And so talking about and teaching them about emotions and regulation, all those things, they they actually learned about themselves far more. And there's no, you can't start early enough. Starting at the primary level can help to reduce long-term impacts. So early universal education is extremely important. So something else we found was multi-touch point education models, being students, staff, caregivers, significantly increase the sustainability and impact of mental health programming in schools. So it's important for all staff to have as deep and clear an understanding of things to notice in students, to understand why sometimes students' behaviors are impacted by mental health, because it can't just all fall on the designated mental health worker. It has to be everybody. Something else we found was our second year was far, like we were able to tweak things that we had learned from the first year, because it did take us a while to get everything established and get things rolling, and troubleshoot some of the issues that were going on. But as Edmonton Catholic said, this is not a, here's your 2-year project, problem solved. This is an ongoing, every single day matter, and it involves holistic approach and wraparound supports and a very entrenched process within school divisions. And having said that, sustainability is very tricky. And, we are a school division of 2,800 kids. We're 3 hours. Bonnieville's about 2.5 hours northeast of Edmonton. Cold Lake's 3 hours. We struggle to access resources. Um, you know, it's very tricky to get. And then, of course, we have some of our contracted services. We have to pay windshield time, basically, and accommodations and everything. So that's a real challenge. And so being able to sustain a model of support is a challenge for us. Oops, I did it again where I didn't do that properly. Okay, so in terms of sustainability, we were not able to keep our mental health navigators, but that is something that if we were able to do, I would do in a heartbeat. Critically important. Our child and youth counselors from the Dragonfly Center, we do have an agreement with them, and we are still using them, um, for those individualized students that require therapeutic support. And we do continue to provide early intervention and prevention strategies and programs, starting in elementary years, but we went from a 1.2 million grant to not that as our mental health wellness funds. And that really made it challenging for us. What else would we do differently? We would definitely, if I could go back and do it again, the onboarding process would have been developed more thoroughly. We held a lot of education sessions, and at some point, especially the high school, they were not thrilled with all of the sessions we had. So we would limit those and embed mental health education into core curriculum, which is what we would like the government to do. We'd also incorporate more Indigenous education and cultural responsiveness to our schools as it relates to mental health support. We would love to increase our mental health staffing models by increasing access to clinical and behavioral specialists. And we would provide more professional learning for all of our staff on trauma-informed practices, mental health literacy, cultural safety, and strategies for supporting neurodivergent students. So at this point, I would be happy to answer questions. And if not, we have some, I didn't go either. Excuse me. We do have some reflection and discussion questions, but if there are any questions prior to Danica taking over, I'm happy to answer them.
Carol, I did have a question, but you answered it in your last few slides there. My curiosity for the group even has been about what has changed, if anything, in your ability to provide student mental health supports and services with the transition from the pilot projects to the mental health and well-being grant. I think I know the answer, but I am curious about that. If anyone wants to speak to that to the large group, that's fine. If you want to just send me an email with your thoughts, that's fine too. But I can imagine it's been a bit of a shift in your systems with that change in the funding model. All right, welcome back. Before we wrap up, I just want to open it up to the group one last time. Are there any questions for either presenters or any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the whole group?
I would just like to say that I really appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with colleagues, to hear what other school divisions are doing. But it's such a great way to leverage the knowledge from so many and be able to implement things, knowing that you can reach back out to someone who's doing some good things across the province. So thank you for this opportunity.
Great, thank you, Leanne. Okay, well, on that note, I will leave you just with a reminder that our third webinar in this series is next Wednesday at 2 p.m. And we have two more school authorities with their stories of practice focused on embedding mental health throughout their system, understanding that the three topics are very interrelated. And we certainly heard about that kind of work today as well. And just a reminder of the Alberta Education Framework session at the CAS conference, if you happen to be there. It's a great opportunity to be able to give feedback on that while it's still in draft form before it's finalized and released. And following this session in a couple of days, I'll have an edited recording and a copy of the slide deck with the corrected session title at the beginning. And I will send that out to all of you and everybody who registered for today's session. So on that note, I'm going to give you the gift of 7 minutes of time. And just on behalf of Cass and everyone here, thank you again to Antonella and her team at Edmonton Catholic and Carol from Lakeland Catholic. We know that it takes a lot of effort to tell a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 year journey in 20 or 30 minutes. And we certainly appreciate the time you put into sharing your stories with us today. So on that note, take good care, everyone, and I wish you a great rest of your week.